What if the real risk is not moving too slowly, but neglecting ownership of who you are becoming? In this conversation, Mark Fritz asks leaders to rethink success through learning milestones, to pace themselves with more wisdom, and to carry 100% responsibility. As a global leadership expert and the author of The Truth About Getting Things Done and his latest book, Lead and Influence, he shows a more stable way to lead your future without fragmentation. Like this episode, place your comments, subscribe to our channel, and DM Future to continue the conversation. My name is Arjan Visser, human-centered futurist, and your host. Welcome, Mark. Welcome back to the old journey.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here a second time.
It is. Last time was really an enlightening conversation, and I still have a great quote you gave me. You know, if you know how to achieve your goals, it's not a goal; it's a plan. Call it a plan. Execute the plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. So many times in the corporate world, they say set a goal for the year, and in the next breath they ask, okay, how are you going to deliver it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, for this conversation, I like to start with another "what if" question. So, what if real success isn't about how much you can push yourself, but about how wisely you can pace yourself through what you are learning?
It's a good question. Yeah, it's very interesting. You think about it. Unless we're learning all the time, we're trying to do what we already know, and things just push ourselves, go faster and faster. And with learning, you gain a couple things. You gain perspective. You always, when you take a break and you don't have the gas on all the time, you reflect, you get more creative, you see faster ways. I think it's really powerful for us to think about, not even not only our achievement plan, but our learning plan that allows us to become more, deliver more, and how would you say, for me, success, you can define it as achieving what you want and enjoying the trip. So I think you end up achieving probably more, and you enjoyed the trip more too.
Well, listening to you, this sounds organic. This sounds naturally, and at the same time, reflecting on the practices around me, my own practices. This is the first thing I tend to trade in, just to push a little bit harder, get get a higher result, not based on just that you want to achieve perfect or excellent, but more like I can do more. That like this drive that is actually talking about it is an external pressure I tend to always want to comply to. But listening to you, it's way more about seeing ownership and pacing as something that intersects with my inner journey, my own government, my own development.
Yeah, if you think about it, you can't lead others, you can't drive a lot of things unless you're leading yourself well. And I think a lot of us, it's a lifelong project to know yourself and to keep learning about, what's best for you, how you do it, and so forth. And I think what I found is if I keep learning new things, I learn faster ways to do things, but also, everything you learn drives you to question some of the things you've thought before. So I think if you've never changed your mind on anything, you probably stop learning, if you're starting to not change your mind and your perspective on things. So that's what I found is to be powerful. I think what's very interesting, many, many years ago when I started my own business, I wanted to keep learning, and if I thought I kept learning, kept having more and more things that I could apply to my role, both in teaching and coaching and so forth. And so I set a goal to read and listen to things at least an hour a day. And I did it, and I kind of drove myself to a habit of doing this only outside the home, and I continued on that for years and years and years. It became most automatic. But what I found is I was growing past my current challenges, and I was looking at my current challenges in a different way because I was always learning something new and driving forward. And in many ways, what drives us to think about different ways is always gathering some type of new insight, right? It might not be exactly a new way of doing something or something, but it's a trigger that helps us look at our world in slightly a different way, maybe drive some creativity. But we're kind of growing past our current challenges and seeing ways that pull us forward and pull us forward faster.
Yeah, one of the things that I hear you say in this brilliant answer, like keep on growing, um, and I want to emphasis on this how important it is. You outgrow your current role, you outgrow your business. Well, the other side of it is you if you don't do it, your success will outgrow you,
Yeah.
and you get in a way you get in trouble. But at the other end, you also mentioned, outside the home, which triggers for me the word like um, the fragmentation in life of having a healthy home, having healthy work, having healthy life. And before we know, we are just trying to balance, like juggling with all these
Yeah.
fragments of life, which gives a huge tension on energy levels, focus, and pacing. And actually, in the balance, I think every part, every ball in the juggling loses.
Yeah.
So how do you bring that together with that pacing of life and learning and not outperforming life in a
Yeah.
sense, but more like uh, keeping the pace, pushing forward i- from a place of curiosity, not strive. But how do I end actually trying to keep the balance between work here, family there, personal life squeezed in the midst?
Yeah. I think you can't balance. You can't balance because what's in your personal business and life and time for you, it's all different, and sometimes, you get more done in less time, and you have more fun in less time, and so forth. So, you can't look at things like a balance. I look at this work and life and you integration. And I think you need 3 things to be really happy is that you have to have, time for your business goals. You have time for your family goals or your partner at home. And also you have to have you time, something that, kind of refuels you. It's part of your passion, and it kind of makes you the best you for the other time. So by having that you time, you're better for your family, you're better for your business. And I think, I think the people who get this right, they, like the old rocks, pebble, sands, water story, they know what the rocks are for all 3 of those, and they know what they need, every week or 2 and so forth in terms of they know what's most important that's needed for the business, what's most important needed for family and for themselves, and they prioritize those things first. It's like, if you had a child and they had their football game and you were never there, you would regret it. But other things, if you weren't there for those, it wouldn't be that big an issue. If you're not home watching a movie together on that night, it won't be as a big an issue. So what I found is that people know their rocks in each part of their life, and they're looking at the best way they can integrate for that week, understanding that, they have to put as many of those in there. So it's not a time element per se or a balance. It's kind of like, how do I look at my life and those and what I need in all 3, and how do I put the most important things in first? And if I happen to have extra time, I, I put other things there too. But I think it's really important to understand, and the thing that's missing in today's world is that you time. Right, and that's part of you time is part of your personal development time, it's part of, your recovery time where you refuel, go to the gym or run or things like that. But I think, we don't need, to have a lot of that time, but I found that the leaders that have no time each week on that, suddenly their stress is building as they eliminate that and they don't prioritize it.
Great point you make. There are three areas. So, not the traditional two areas. So, we already prevent that we are biased to overemphasize on one of the two, because with three, we end the balance, and we create. Listening to you, the word ecosystem comes to mind.
Yep,
You get an ecosystem, you get momentum in how you work on your home goals, your occupational goals,
yep,
and your personal goals, your you time.
yeah.
And I love it. If you don't have you time, you sabotage everything.
I really think so because, it brings the focus and energy to the other 2, and you're a better you for your family or for your business or your leadership role, and I think, part of that is your own development, learning new things to stay curious, and part of it is understanding yourself in terms of what types of, recovery activities you need and which are the ones that are most important to you. And the people that I know that are really good at this is they know what recovery works best, and they know what recovery takes so much time. So if they happen to have a really busy week, they've traveled different things, they know what recovery for just 15 or 20 minutes or a half hour will help them, and so they position that. So, some days you have extra time, so you go out for a bike ride for 3 hours or so. You do different things, but they kinda know what are the various ways to recover and add energy there, in different timelines. And the other thing what I found, which is very interesting, is, think about this, you don't learn time management when you have enough time, right? You learn time management when you don't have enough. And I think the people who manage things in a better way, they're always limiting the time they can give something. Like if you have a proposal to make or something, you'd say, well, to make this perfect, I really should put 3 hours in, but you may not 3 hours. So years ago, I heard, I think it was the CEO of L'Oreal or someone said, very interesting. She said, uh, perfection is the enemy of excellence, right? And
Yes.
so a lot of times we have to think everything right. And I think the very best people say, okay, I can only afford, I got all these other things going on. I can only afford to spend this much time on this because I need to dedicate more over here or something, right? Or say I have something towards the end of the day and I need to be at my son or daughter's football game. I can only spend 20 minutes on this. Let's see what I can do and the best I can do in 20 minutes. And I'll tell you what it does. It just ultra focuses you, so that you're more present in the moment. And when you're present, you always get a lot more done.
It shifts your whole working at it to intention and attention.
Yeah.
And it by not making time leading, but lead time,
Yeah.
you actually start to live. And you step over it as a constraint. You start to use it as a resource.
That's a good way of putting it, right? Because a lot of times that's a mindset issue. You look at it as a constraint. You don't look at it as a resource. And also, from a leadership perspective, When I teach people in Leah, I say, if you don't have a who, the who is always you. So, a lot of times I'm saying instead of thinking how, think who can help, who might have some ideas for me to do this quicker, et cetera, et cetera. And, if you think about today's world, we get our greatest enjoyment, we get our greatest feeling of achievement and pride, when we're doing something with someone, not just that we did it ourselves, but, you get that, camaraderie and so forth, of working and doing it with someone. So, I think, the thing I found also with people that are very effective is they're not thinking how, they're thinking who.
So when you ask people, how can I help you to success? Can I help you to succeed? When you ask that, what are you really listening for?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things. I always say, "How can I help you to be even more successful in your role?" So I'm making a statement that they're already successful. So I'm not saying that they're not as successful as they could be. I'm saying they're already successful, but how could I help them to be there? And it also a couple things. It tells me what they think success is, because success is different for everybody. Okay, and so everybody has a different view of what success is. And the third thing is for me is probably I'm doing something that could be slowing them down, or maybe I'm not giving as much clarity or guidance so they can run faster, or maybe I'm not seeing my own blind spot, and I'm holding on to more of things I like to do, and I'm not giving them an opportunity to learn something new or to step out of their comfort zone because I'm staying in mine. So I loved asking that question every quarter to my key people. How can I help you to be even more successful in your role? And I always found it to be one of the best conversations. What they shared to me, what I learned from that, what I could do differently. And the other thing is, whenever you're asking for feedback or you're asking questions like that, you got to be prepared to action, what they say, because if they say, well, we wish you did this, or, you this and this, you could help us better, and you got to action it, right? Asking for feedback and doing nothing about it is actually, shooting your credibility. So I think asking is great, because asking with some ownership and commitment behind doing something about it drives us to improve faster.
So in a way, the answer to the question to your own people really makes your ownership tangible
Yeah.
because you have set yourself up for the action. You set yourself up to empower them by stepping up in what they sense they need.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly, and I ask myself that, and a lot of times I don't ask what's success. I ask myself if I have a clear outcome that I need to drive. I say, what is it that I'm really trying to achieve? What is that outcome? And then, how can I get there faster? And so that's tendency was when I'm not moving forward fast enough on something, the first thing I start be thinking about something different is I try to make that outcome or that goal or whatever I'm trying to achieve much clearer in my mind. Because if you think about it, if you really want creativity, creativity needs two things. Creativity needs a very, very clear target, and it needs some type of constraint, right? And so, if you have a very clear target, the best constraint you can have is I have to do it in less time. But, if you have no constraints, there's no need to be creative, because whatever you do you'll find a way. But when you have a constraint, whether in time, money, or maybe, you don't have all the resources you would really like, or you don't have the resources that are very capable, you still have to find a way to go and make it happen. But I found that, it's always good to have that outcome in mind, and make it as clear as possible before you brainstorm the ideas to go make it happen.
So besides clarity, that what most people talk about, they want more clarity.
Yep.
Um, we've you learn them first, that you don't need more clarity about what, or no, sorry, you need about what, not about the how.
Exactly.
And then the core question is, who are you becoming and for who? And then the third dimension is that it needs to have a constraint.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that constraint, together with not knowing the how, and forces you to plug into your creativity and step over risk mitigation and start to do something you've not done before.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, that's the key thing too, what you just saying there is that you gotta be willing to step out of your comfort zone. You know, there was an old saying about, you know, entrepreneurs are like a missile, right? When a missile gets shot, there was one many years ago that shot a what do you call it, a spacecraft or a satellite was coming down, and it wasn't gonna burn in the atmosphere totally, so they had to shoot it down. A missile doesn't go directly at the target, right? It constantly adjusts, you know, towards getting there. And so like entrepreneurs, they don't know how, but they know how to get started. And they'll find a way. If it doesn't work, they'll find another way. And I think that's the key mindset that people that really get things done is that they have the confidence that they'll always find a way forward. And in fact, a lot of the people who are investing companies, they're not so much investing in the idea, they're investing in the team that has created the idea, because many times the first idea doesn't work, but if you have a great team, they'll come up with the second idea. You know, if you have a poor team and the first idea doesn't work, they don't have the ability to come up with that second idea. And so, you know, they think there's an element there of being prepared, that with a mindset that, you know, you'll find the how, right? You'll find the how way.
So in a way, these are already practical tools how to pace yourself. You mentioned don't ignore the you time.
Yes, absolutely.
Um, I remember when I take a bike ride for a couple of hours, there is a moment halfway that I stop pedaling because the ideas start to flow.
Yeah,
So there is something about being out of your office space, in nature, exercising, movement, and then ideas start to flow.
absolutely.
Recognizing that the first idea is not the holy grail. It actually sets you up for a better idea. And the more iterations you have, not ignoring the time constraint
Yeah,
because you can't go forever, but they birth better ideas.
yeah. And, you know, what you just said, I think is really key. You know, if you're out for 4 hours, you'll have all these different ideas and it's triggered and so forth. And since you're out on the bike, as you get these ideas, you're not judging them, right? Your mind is like free flowing. In business, whenever we have an idea, you know, the room immediately judges it. And when you start judging, you're turning off the creativity on that. And that's why these when you do a bike ride, or you go for a run, or you know, a little bit longer, you just like a free flow of ideas, and you're not really judging them at that time. And because it's a free flow, it's triggering things and triggering things, and ultimately, as you say, you might say, "Oh, there's an aha moment. I gotta stop. I gotta write this down or something," because, you know, it's just been free flowing.
Knowing that the judging in the business setting is most of the times based on it's disruptive for my comfort.
Yeah,
I don't know how.
yeah,
So it creates unpredictability and uncertainty.
yeah, yeah,
And we just dismiss that we want to solve something, and we just accept that it's not solved, but we protect our comfort.
yeah. I think you mentioned a very good thing. Yeah, one thing is we're so uncertain, we don't know how, and a lot of times people say they're very proactive. Say we just don't know how yet. But the other thing you mentioned about it, it just doesn't fit my personal thing. I think in business, a lot of times, I think people driving change, they underestimate the personal agendas in people, right? You know, people, their instant reaction to thing is based on their own personal agenda, not through thought out, type of analysis of the idea or the solution. So, I think as much as we can, we have to get to know people enough to understand, where they're coming from and what type of personal agendas they might have, because that's kind of the framework as to how they evaluate everything in a snap judgment without a lot of thinking.
So if you're not courageous to actually use life for that learning, like you said, like learning, life is a learning opportunity from beginning to end,
Exactly.
then actually the risk is that when discomfort shows up, we don't stretch ourselves into
Mm,
creativity, use it as a constraint to get to a mental space where a solution is probably hidden in plain sight, but we treat it actually as a stop sign
yeah.
to
I
not go further.
Exactly. I think you said it very well. Our learning journey positions ourselves to be much more adaptable in the moment, to have that expectation that the how will come. And after people sort of, let's say they have a couple experiences of getting through obstacles, they have the confidence to understand that they'll get through another one. I think the other thing is that, some people think, "Nah, I have to do it all myself." And now you're limiting your ability. And I think, the what I found is that whenever I have something new, I think about also who has some experience with this, and have a quick conversation, because, picking up a few ideas could save a lot of time forward on. So, I think we need to ask for advice of others at key times. And, if you think about it, when you're doing your own learning, you're asking for advice in advance. Uh, but, if if you're in the moment, then you say, "Well, who could help on this?" And, quite frankly, now we have AI who can be that instant helper for us. And I think, the people that are going to get the best out of AI are in the mode of, I'll find a way. They're going to make more curious prompts. They're going to structure those prompts in the context in a way where they're going to get better advice quicker than if one just says, "I have this issue. What can I do?" And I think, there's a lot of discussion these days about, the people that are curious, and the people with not a minimalist mindset. There's a growth mindset. They're always seeing opportunities, and they always have that confidence that there is a how. I just haven't found it yet, but there is a way through this.
While mentioning AI, if you don't beat AI, it will do exactly what your
Yeah,
search for comfort does as well. It will start to please you by how to stay comfortable,
yeah,
and embracing the right kind of discomfort actually you keeps your momentum
yeah,
without the self-sabotage. So it becomes a pace signal to keep on going. So you could nearly say, because it's not 100%, but the moment I feel comfort, I should be triggered that I've taken something for granted and I've reduced it to the size of my current understanding, which makes
yeah,
me actually say, I stop learning because now I know, now I understand.
yeah,
So fighting that I need to understand before I start, and actually throw it in the air and say, no, I start. So there will be a moment that I understand,
yeah.
keeps me going. doesn't feed my self-sabotage, you know, but sometimes it is just hard. It's just hard. We just want to have some solid ground.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting you say that because if you're totally comfortable and you're kind of, in the groove, there's an old saying, if you're in a groove too long, it becomes a rut. Right? And I think, there's an element of in the science in our brain too, is that, we make more pathways, we make better connections. We integrate what we learn more when we're bringing in something new, or we have an uncertainty we're trying to find a way through and use our creativity. So yeah, I think we just get stronger the more that we're challenging ourselves out of that comfort zone, and putting out something in front of us. A lot of times people, they I think they say, if you set a goal, it should both excite you and scare you. Right? So, there's that element of it. It's going to bring you energy because it's going to put you out of your comfort zone. You're going to be energetic about trying to solve it. Yeah, yeah, it's going to scare you, but you leverage those past experiences, that you have the confidence to take on this new one. Yeah, I think what someone said, it was about, I think about 20 years ago now. Someone said that a great way to stay confident is, create an achievement list. So create a document, and as you achieve things, write it down, what you did to deliver it. It's kind of like a personal, a journal, but in terms of your achievement. When you run into something that you think is totally blocking you and you're not gonna be able to go through it, go back and read your achievement journal, and it just demonstrates to you of the person you can be and you've been in terms of getting through all those previous challenges. And so I think it's naive, like some people think, as I wanna be in a life that's always comfortable. Some people would say, "Oh, wow, a life that's always slightly uncomfortable, so it forces me to keep growing."
Absolutely. Because if we have a life that is really comfortable, we start to complain that it's a golden cage. We are
Yeah,
locked in.
yeah.
And like the advice, um, journal, create a logbook around what you thought was impossible, and at the end what was impossible. You see that leap,
Yeah,
and that actually helps you to be grateful for where you ended up. It keeps you humble because it was not just your achievement. In the leap, you've learned something,
yeah,
you received something, and that gives you hope that the next challenge, although it seems impossible, well, you've been in that place before, that it wasn't impossible, and at the end, it was possible. So it just helps you to have hope and
yeah,
take that perspective.
yeah.
Uh,
I
and
think you mentioned 2 very key words there, and actually the third one you just mentioned there. You know, you end up your gratitude for what you were able to accomplish, and gratitude for who helped you to get there, it creates that type of, energy and hope for that more and more things will come your way, and you'll be able to go make that happen. But I think, a lot of times people say that, the fuel, for our energy for taking on the future is being gratitude for what we were able to accomplish in the past.
exactly. And I think it builds what we mentioned at the beginning. Um, we need learning milestones to navigate, and they're not achievement milestones. So we accomplish something with hindsight that was way bigger than we upfront expected to learn. So it was not our achievement. We are grateful for it. It gives energy, it gives hope, and actually gives a higher expectation of what could be possible if it all accumulates, knowing that last time it was more than the accumulation.
Right.
So, how do we use those learning milestones to actually navigate? And you already gave the example of the missile. It was not
Yeah.
adapt, it is actually an ongoing alignment with what is aimed to learn. So, how do we use learning milestones?
Well, I think there's a couple things that I've learned over the years from people is that, if you think about learning, we learn through the books, what we watch, the podcasts like this and so forth, and the people we meet. And when I was coaching leaders and coaching people that were thinking about a different career change or movement, I said, you always want to learn and you always want to build your network in the direction of where you'd like to go. Or if you have two or three options, you learn on the direction of those, and then you kind of figure out what you want to do. And so I think there's an element of our learning and the people we want to meet. It's in a direction of where we want to go or where or how we want to grow. And then for us, and I think one of the key habits you see in very successful people is that they reflect and they think ahead. And some people do that every week. Some people do the bigger things every quarter or 6 months. Some people have a mini one at the end of each day. What did I learn? What do I need to do differently the next day? Even some that have really, critical meetings, will also do like a mini 30-second to a minute reflection of that meeting. How did it go? What could I do better? Because those interactions are so important. So, but I think there's always um, reminding yourself of what you've learned and how, and then reminding it enough that you're now going to use it in a different way, so to improve the next time. What I found working with lots of people is that, you know, we all have our own way to remind ourselves of key things. Sometimes people have post-it notes in their office. Some people put something in their notebook. Some people are referring to it, writing again on their journal, or doing different things. And everybody is different about it. But unless we remind ourselves of the key things that we want to do and hold ourselves accountable, um, we're not as effective as if we're just keeping everything in our head. And I think that's a key thing I found with people because sometimes I'll ask them, I say, "What's your best way to remind yourself?" Not just of the small emails you have to send, but of the bigger things. Because if it's in front of you, it's more top of mind. You're always going to take more action.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a list next to the screen I spend most of my working time looking at. It's there. Move a little bit to the left and the right, and it gives focus.
Yeah.
And in a way, it is an element of my self governance to truly lead where I'm going, what I sense that my future is unfolding into, not to control, but actually to using the word that we've used a couple of times in our conversation to actually pace myself.
Yep.
And and you gave a great example because pace is not just like with the pace car in some sports you have, or in racing, horse racing. Then there is something keeping up the pace.
Right.
No, the pacing comes from those little loops, routines, or
Yep.
maybe better word is like this infinity loops, where with a set time interval, I reflect and I use that reflection
Yep.
not to condemn myself, not to judge,
Mm.
but actually to increase hope and adjust my actions based on what I'm learning.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it gives a level of alignment and stability although I'm navigating uncertainty and feeling not comfortable.
Yeah, because you're relying on those rituals, right? And that's another other key thing that a lot of people have. They have certain basic rituals. When they do it in times of uncertainty, it helps them focus on the right things. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you don't need a lot, and you can't copy someone else's. You can understand what other people do and why they do it for them, and then you can figure out your own for yourself. But without some rituals, our tendency is to be over dramatic on things, or it just doesn't look as doable. I think we all need some of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone is listening and realizing they have been maybe fragmenting their life or chasing achievements or even outsourcing ownership of their own learning, what's the first self governance shift they can make today to begin pacing their life differently?
Well, I think we started with the three lives to make sure that they have something in all three. And as part of the you time, not just thinking of that as recovery or going to the pub or these type of things, but what is it that they want, in which direction they want to grow, in terms of helping them with you know creating keeping their perspective and looking at things from, uh, from in an uncertain world with the expectation that I'll find a way. And I think, we always need to keep learning, or because learning gives us more insights. It triggers our creativity. I think one of the generals in the US said, reading books and everything, and that learning, sometimes it gives you the answer, but sometimes it's enough that it lights a path towards the answer you can find yourself. And so I think that's really key. And then, I think taking the time to reflect and think ahead is key, and do it in the way that works best for you. But I found if you don't think ahead and reflect often enough, you end up being a passenger in your life and not in the driver's seat.
Yeah. Well, and what I actually want to add listening to you is do not only think about it, use your imagination, your creativity, but articulate what you are imagining, what you are seeing, what you are thinking.
Yeah,
If you can't articulate it, there is a part of your nervous system not engaging.
yeah,
And it is the seeing and the hearing that builds the foundation for that action to learn. So, and the articulation takes a lot of time, and it goes parallel to your reflection.
yeah, yeah,
If you can't explain it to yourself, when Twitter just started, if you can't put it in 120 characters, you can't put it out there. Einstein said it. If you can't bring it to words that are simple,
yeah,
don't oversimplify it. But if you can't put it simple, you don't understand. So you need to articulate to finish that loop of seeing and hearing
yeah.
to actually move forward.
I agree, and, always used to ask myself this question, so sometimes it takes a long time to read a book or watch a video. When I hear something interesting, I always ask the question, "How would I apply this?" Because it moves the learning from, hey, something vague to something doable. And so, like, you think about it, what you learn only has power if you can retrieve it at the right time. So when you ask yourself, "How would I apply it?" You're turning it into an action that is stored as an action, and your brain can reference it when you enter something in your life that's similar. Your brain offers it up because you created a marker. And so I think one of the things that I did over the past 20 years, when I learned something new, I always ask myself that question. How would I apply it? So I retrieve a lot more of what I learned than if I didn't ask that question.
Yeah, and what I do with the help of AI, we can transcribe on the fly,
Yeah,
speak your notes, articulate it.
yeah,
And then when you read it, you can use your discernment. Did I really understand what's happening?
yeah.
No. Do another iteration,
Very
make
good.
use of those supportive technologies that
Yeah.
don't make your life easier, make it accessible.
It's like the old saying, it said, how do I know what I think until I hear what I say?
Absolutely. So, Mark, how can people connect with you and explore more of your work on ownership, leadership, and pacing their lives?
Well, you can link with me on LinkedIn, or go to my website, markfritzonline.com, and, and I have a couple apps that you could I have a daily thought, and also a daily leadership reminders web apps that you could, download onto your phone and, and reference. What's interesting is the daily thought web app has over 50 years of thoughts. So as I was learning things over the last 20 years, I've been writing thoughts on it and I put it into a database. It started in 2005 and I have thoughts out to 2055.
Wow. Well, I'll make sure the links are in the description
Okay,
of
good.
the
Thanks.
replay of our conversation. So to bring it all home, what are the three things that we talked about and we want to repeat as a final takeaway?
I'd say first thing is understand that those big rocks, the most important things in you time, family time, and business time. Uh, you know, uh, Understand where you want to learn and to grow in, and put your learning and the growth of your network and then in the direction of where you want to go, and make that part of you time, so that you're the best for both your business and your family. And I think the third is invest in that reflection and think ahead time, because you want to stay in the driver's seat versus the passenger seat. And that's very important because I used to ask myself towards the end of my career, I used to ask myself, was I in the driver's seat enough of my week? Because sometimes when you don't invest in that think ahead time, you're being driven around by others, and it's not necessarily the most comfortable places they're taking you. So I found that reflection and think ahead time helps me to stay more confident and in the driver's seat of what I want to accomplish. And that's when I really look at my calendar and say, am I investing the right time in the business, and my family?
I think you've just painted a great metaphor, with the three um, big rocks. You define your vehicle and sitting in the driver's seat, um, learning what you've passed, and also your head time, your imagination, your futurizing
Yeah,
to actually navigate the best way
yeah,
that you can do to learn more and to get where to you want to go. So
perfect.
it's a keep momentum um, metaphor that is so needed because it actually frames the day, it frames the decisions, it frames the direction of our business.
It's a great way to describe it. Absolutely. And I think you used the right word there, the navigate, right? It helps us find that way through.
Mark, I want to thank you for your
Thanks
wisdom.
again. Pleasure.
It was a joy. And for those who stayed with us to the end, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening, processing, and on behalf of yourself, I just encourage you to take action. Something have sparked you, something resonated, something is meaningful for your own journey. If you like to share that, that's really appreciated because we love to read your reflections, engage with you. If you have further questions, share them as well so we can take them with us in another conversation. Next week, we hope to broadcast another session. You're welcome to join again. And if you can't wait, there's also the Alt Dialogue, where we keep this conversation ongoing. It's an exclusive peer dialogue with visionary leaders to actually pioneer and ponder that emerging authentic leadership transformation question that shapes our leadership for a future together. So just DM future and we will send you the details.